Hey there folks, in today's video I'm going to show you how to remove and replace the front struts on your 2007 Pontiac G5. First thing you're going to do is pop the hood, which we've already done because you need access underneath throughout the service. Then you're going to jack up your car. Make sure you throw it on a set of stands just so it's nice and sturdy. Now before you lift it up, just loosen your lug nuts a little bit. I've already done that. Now we're just going to loosen them the rest of the way and take this wheel off. Alright, so I've already gone and taken these off a little bit so they're nice and loose for us. So if you want, you might need a breaker bar like this because it is very difficult to get them off. Now I'm just going to show you really quickly. The bolts we're going for, there's one right here and there's one right here, and just up here we're going for that one as well. Alright, so before you do anything with the bolts, we're just going to use this product right here, liquid wrench. It is a penetrating oil, and we're just going to spray those 3 bolts I just showed you. And then we're going to use an 18 mil socket and we're going to remove those. And just remember, it's not going to be this easy for you. It's only this easy for me just because I've already had it off and greased it, just so for the camera we're not struggling for you. Alright, so now that we have the 2 bolts here almost all the way off, back them up till they're flush with the ends, and then we're just going to use a hammer and hit it that way so you don't damage the threads. So you'll see once you hammer it, it'll pop out right here, and we'll just keep on using our penetrating oil. And again with this one here. Now it's time for this one up here. And I just have to find one of my sockets, so we're just going to cut and I'll be right back to you. Alright, so one note to make. This one here has a longer stem on it, so you're going to need a deep socket. And if you don't have an 18 mil, this one is actually a 3/4 works as well. So we're just going to put that on and try and break it off now. The other thing I've got is a huge extender piece because you'll find it's going to be hard to get up in this wheel well. So if you get a nice long extender that fits on your breaker bar, you can actually work on the outside of the wheel well. So we're going to use an Allen key right here to hold that in place. This Allen key is a 6 mil. Stick it right in there like that. And I'm just going to get my 18 mil wrench. Actually, we'll use our 3/4. Now all you're going to do is you're just going to hold this Allen key and remove the nut. All right, so we're gonna remove these bolts the rest of the way now, and the two here. Now to get these the rest of the way out, this is just a 10 mil Allen key, just whatever largest one you can find. Just stick in the hole there and hammer it. All right, and you just pull these pieces apart, and you can actually see all the corrosion in there. That's all dirt and corrosion and stuff. So now the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna meet you on the top of the car and I'll show you where to disconnect at the top. All right, so here's the front of the car. This is your front headlight right here. This is your driver's side still. And just right here, behind your coolant reservoir, just by your actuator, there's 3 bolts. We'll just give you a quick zoom so you can see. So these 3 bolts here, I'm using a 13 mil socket. These are actually a lot easier to get off because they've been protected by being under the hood. And we're just going to remove those. And just be prepared when you do this, it may fall because this is all that's holding it up now. So if you do want to do this first, if you're all by yourself and you think it'll be easier, then go ahead and do this first and then that. The order doesn't really matter. Alright folks, so I've done a few pieces of improvisation for this. I've tried to slice a little bit with a hacksaw, put a screwdriver in there, vice grips, it didn't work. So what I'm actually doing is where that stem is that we were taking the bolts off, I'm actually using my right foot and pushing it down with my weight and towards the car, so then it puts weight on the screw. So if you have any issue, you just have to pull that strut towards so that the screw in question is being pulled down, because the actual stem here is just free spinning, and you'll see it's starting to drop down. And if you do that method I just showed you, make sure that you're wearing steel toes in case it does fall. So I'm gonna go back under the car and we're gonna show you what it looks like. All right, so the way the suspension fell, it came back here and it's actually still attached to their stabilizer link, so I'll just wiggle that. So that's our old one. We're going to set it aside and we're going to put our new one in. Alright folks, so the order that we did things in didn't matter for uninstalling, however installing it does matter. So we need to get this stabilizer link on first before we attach everything on top. So we're going to do the work on the bottom here. this is the hard part where you might need a second set of hands, because this, I think it's the sway bar, not really sure, but it wants to push up. So you actually have to push down. So if you can get a helper, if not, you're gonna have to muscle it into place. All right, so now that we have it into place, I'm just gonna put those 3 bolts that were on top that we took off. I'm just gonna put a couple of them in place because that's all it's poking through right now, just so that it doesn't shoot back down on us. And I heard something fall. Actually, I can see it now. Not exactly sure what it is, but we'll have to review on the camera. ABS. I'll take a peek at that later on, see where that came from. So now that we have it in place, it's a little easier. That bar will help tighten things up. Now we're just going to try and tighten this up so it can straighten it. As we tighten this bolt, because it's hard to see on camera, but this bolt is actually kind of going in at an angle. And with our bare hands, it's a little difficult to push that in, so as I tighten the bolt, I don't want to pull it in. And we're just going to hold the back here. All right, now that's as tight as we can get it before we tighten anything else up. So now it'll be a little bit easier. So we have to push against the force of this, which is going to be a little difficult, but now this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. Be careful when you're pushing on this, because there's a lot of pinch points where you could hurt yourself. All right, now one more bolt pop through the top here, so we're just going to fasten that in a little bit. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the 3 bolts that were up top all the way down. So that's as snug as we can get them. The reason I tighten those 3 is so that this won't wiggle around as much. Still gonna wiggle a bit, but it gives us a little easier time. And while you're doing this, as soon as you can see where you can get a bolt in, put it in. There we go. Alright, it's good if you wear knee pads on this project too. Alright, so now that that's in, just gonna knock them the rest of the way. And be careful when you're swinging not to hit your brake line. All right, so we're just gonna put the nuts back on. And you'll see I'm wearing gloves. It's almost pointless at this point, but helps keep most of the grease unless it rips like these. All right, so I just did it snug right now, but then we're gonna grab our torque wrench and we're gonna go 100 foot-pounds. Now we're gonna use our big extender so we can, actually, you know what? No, we're not gonna do that on that. We're gonna do that on this one here so we can get leverage. Actually, that one's being a little difficult. It's gonna be hard to get with the torque wrench, so we're gonna have to put our Allen key in there. And we're just gonna have to crank it as hard as we can. That's pretty good. All right, now these go to 100. All right, that one's good. And that one's good. All right, folks. So, I'm just gonna remove any tags that you have. If you bought them at the wreckers, they like to throw a little tag on there. And you just double check, make sure. 2 bolts on, 3rd one there. Everything's all good. Nice and stiff. So we're just gonna go back to the top here. Now these 3 bolts here, we're gonna snug them up as well. Now that everything's done, just to make sure. All right. And back down to the bottom of the car one more time and we'll seal up the deal. All right, now with this, same thing as the suspension, we're gonna go 100 foot-pounds of torque. Just gonna snug them up before I put it down. And if you have your e-brake on, a lot of the times this will lock. And even though these are 100 up here, once we set it back down, we're going to torque it one more time. So we're gonna jack the car back up, get it off the stands, put it back down. And as always, when you do your service and you have your car up, just give it a look underneath. Sometimes you'll find that you've dropped something and you don't want your tire going down on something and popping it. All right, folks, there you have it. Nice good spring to it. We had no spring left at all, so we're good to go. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.